once again, welcome to everyone joining us online and guest speaker is present here. The month of June, the world celebrates as the International Day of Yoga. In the month of December 2014, the United Nations declared June 21st to be dedicated for the practice of yoga. And this year happens to be the 10 years of its celebration. Today, our topic is an evening with a yogi. So this month, our insight session will be dedicating to explore different aspects of yoga. And since our organization specializes in Raj Yoga, one of the ancient yogas, so we'll explore different dimensions of it. When you think of just the word yoga or yogi, what image comes to your mind? What image comes to your mind when you just hear the word yogi? Anybody can unmute and say. Yes, Sandra?
A very virtuous, dedicated person to our Divine Father, with all the virtues and characteristics that our Father endowed in us.
Wow. How beautiful. Virtues. I thought she would say, oh, a person with some long hair, long beard, is in a Zen, sitting under a tree, closed his eyes, meditating. But no, she went into the subtle aspect of what a yogi means, virtuous and connected with the source.
Or description in that nature, was it based on prior to having Ian or?
Oh yeah, she's not in camp.
Okay.
But very nice, very nice. Thank you, Sandra. Anybody else would like to share? When you think of the word yogi, what image comes to your mind? One was virtuous. There is some kind of an expectation. A yogi means behave like this. So any thoughts on that? What comes to your mind? One is to understand, there are two words, yoga and a yogi, right? And in the world, when they use the word yoga, we also get a lot of calls on, do you teach yoga? Do you teach physical yoga, which is also known as a hatha yoga? And there are different types of yoga in the world out there. There is bhakti yoga, there is buddhi yoga, there is karma yoga, there is sannyas yoga, there is Raj yoga. There are different petals. Raj Yoga is one of the ancient yogas that we have heard of and we know of. So
Don't give me so. I'm calling. So.
Somebody's mic is look up. Okay, that's okay. Yeah. So today, I mean, you of course met him last week when we have the fortune of Brother Terry, who's also known as Brian Terry Welchman, who's been practicing Raj Yoga for more than 44 years now. And playing, you would think a yogi means, well, see, sister is wearing a white sari, she's left the world out there and she's in the center. What does she even know? Well, I used to work in the world out there, participate in different activities and both the roles. So here is our brother who wears multiple hats, is wearing multiple hats, has been wearing multiple hats, playing various roles, and still being a yogi, a soul playing various roles. So let's explore how this yogi life, what does it mean? What does a day of a yogi look like, feel like? Yeah, so I invite our dear brother Terry to come and join us.
It's a pleasure to be with you again. And as Sister Kinnari had just explained, what this month topic is represented by the world over, the month dedicated to what yogi or yoga is like. I know many of us would like to know deeper or have a deeper sense of understanding what the life of a yogi means and also what yoga is. My experiences from the time I came into understanding what Raj Yoga means, from the day I took the first lesson based on Raj Yoga as taught by the Brahma Kumaris. Of course, the founding father is our Supreme Soul, whom we refer to by many names of various different religious backgrounds or persuasions. We all recognize that there is a Supreme Being, and he is here over a long period of time, introducing to us what it is to follow his instructions. Though we might have been practicing many other persuasions before time, Raj Yoga is what is given to us with a deeper understanding. Firstly, the true identity of the self. Only by knowing who the self is, then we are able to understand how to communicate and how to relate with God, the Supreme Being. Now, my experiences after knowing the true identity of the self is that I had to know how to communicate deeper with, as at that time I said, this Supreme Being. So even though I'm working every day, at that time being a family personnel or a family person, having to go through the norms that we all face with every day, the different persuasive influences that try to pull us into different ways of life. My practice began by firstly getting to prepare a domain or a specific part in the house where I can enjoy silence, where I can at least say, I can rewind, check myself, knowing deeper who I am. And so the preparation started with a vacant room that was occupied by a lot of, as you would call it, family accumulated junk. So I cleared the room and decided to really bring it into a state of a sanctuary, like calm, cool, and just a place to relax. And so that transformation of that room became known as a meditation room, a room where I can go and rewind, relax, contemplate on the self, think about who I am, what am I doing here? When I leave here, where will I go? Those are the questions I started to ask myself, and I'm quite certain many of us ask ourselves those questions too. So toning the room down to a sort of an aura that would give calmness, that is lighting effects, bringing it into a state where no other influences could distract me from focusing my thoughts in one direction, trying as much as possible to seal it in such a way that the outside sounds couldn't penetrate in the room. It was as if I was going into a state of seclusion, but that wasn't seclusion. We have to first practice coming out of the past influences where we used to bow our heads, close our eyes, and then feel to ourselves that we are having a communication with God. Whatever people call it, or whatever it is known as, we all say different things. We say prayers, we say meditation, we say, I'm going to talk with God, all sorts of ways we have tried. But when we sit, or when I sat, I started to think, well, I have mortgages to pay. I have light bill to pay. I have 4 vehicles to look after. Oh, it was a battle of thoughts through which I had to overcome. In the beginning, it is not easy. And the reason why we have these different thoughts bombarding our minds and intellect, it is because that has been our practice for centuries, birth after birth, for many, many years. And so it became an inborn kind of an adaptable or an adopted sanskar or impression in the soul. So that is the first thing that I had to overcome. So realizing from the first lesson, as taught by the Brahma Kumaris, I am a soul. That is my true identity. Then realizing afterwards that it is the body that has a name, but the soul remains soul. Then it tells you clearly, explicitly, that the soul is eternal. The name soul, the being I am, the identity that I am, that doesn't change. You know what changes? Just like we change clothes, that's the body. The body is one name this birth, another name the next birth, and so the body changes. But the soul, the eternal entity, the true identity of the self, remains eternal soul.
Pause you here for a moment.
Yes, certainly.
It's very interesting how you started and started with clearing the so-called junk room and made it into a meditation, like a sanctuary in the house. So I'm just thinking, like the mind, the state of the mind,
That's right.
however it is, like the external becomes a reflection of that.
That's
So you are actually going through a process of sorting out things here in the
That's right.
mind, and you also did it externally. And it's good that you're honest and saying, there's a struggle. I sit
Yes,
for
yes,
meditation and I'm having bombarded with all these thoughts,
That's right.
mortgages to pay, bills to pay, and you have to go here and tasks like that. But you didn't give up. You
No.
went and you sat there and you continued your endeavor, your spiritual endeavor, whether your mind was going out, in, forward, backward.
Yeah, never
Um,
give up.
And you also mentioned about how the first lesson, kind of helped you in stabilizing or recognizing who you are? The name and you, the name will change,
Right.
but you, the being, are constant,
Yes.
right? What else helped you? And I know you were in a family, you had your business, and you've been, as you said, 4 cars to take care of, and family members. So was it more difficult? Because this was an add-on. Raj Yoga was an add-on. You already had your hands full. And because people say, I really don't have time. Some people say, I don't even have time to eat. I don't even have time to drink.
True.
Forget about sleeping, sister. Where is vacation time? So, did it become more difficult to find time, make time for this? Or what happened? And did you have to compromise on something of your business or work, or just one?
Yes, certainly. Those are very, very good questions and very good and important things, because what you have just related, it deals exactly practically with life and the journey that we have to go through in this life or in this drama that we are involved with. So in the beginning, I did have some Raj yogis who came from India, as well as seniors who were able to help me. So I asked very many questions. And so every single book that the Brahma Kumaris had at that time, I was given as a gift. And they were very meager in cost at that time when I came in. And so I was able to possess just about every single book that related to knowing deeper about Raj Yoga that the Brahma Kumaris had in this country. But at that time, a struggle was within the household. I was married at that time. My wife was undergoing a serious operation in another country. And so my mother-in-law came and stayed with me. And I was able to just read those books, retire a bit from work because I was in a various, I would say, a mire of thoughts. And so the books did help me to iron myself out and smooth out a lot of things. For the first 2 weeks, I think my mother-in-law thought that I was running crazy. I saw just a table, and that table was my desk. And all I got up to do was to use the bathroom facilities, whether it's a shower or the dining table to eat or the kitchen to cook. But I was at that table for about 2 weeks straight. I couldn't realize where that energy came from. I did not understand at that time why I could not really see the bed to sleep. But that energy just kept flowing, and it was a routine thing until most of the family who comes to see me at that time would say, something is wrong with you. You're not resting. Why don't you rest? But eventually I persevered, and it is their expressions that made me to understand that a change was taking place. A change I couldn't see if I look in the mirror. A change I couldn't understand if I was in dialogue with everyone. But all I heard is from whoever comes, man, you looking changed. What you doing? Your face is seems to like change. What's on? But when you look in the mirror, you see the same face reflecting back at you. But others seem to feel the change, and that feeling was vibrations. I was going through a transition, a process of like revolving or going through a different process of vibrating whatever qualities I was receiving. And I could not understand what was really going, but I kept persevering. Eventually, it happened that this meditation room, when I went into it, I never heard a motorcycle or a horn or any noise, but it wasn't soundproof. It was that a change I was undergoing, but I could not explain at that time what that change was. Eventually, I started back on my work. Most of the clients would say, "Hey, Terry, what's happening, man? You look so, I mean, what's wrong? You're changing, man. What you doing? You're looking younger. You're looking, all sorts of these different expressions, but I couldn't relate at that time what I was doing because I knew those guys that were coming to have their cars fixed or who I'm with. The first thing they would say, "Man, you're crazy," And those were the things I had to accept. Now, what it is that I had to accept, the truth. And many times we say the truth hurts. But previously, if anybody were to tell me I'm crazy, it's like it would cause a friction. I couldn't accept it. But now I can start accepting anything anybody tells me. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I felt that it was just a balance. But it's that I am facing the truth. I read the books, I studied the books. I used to have a dictionary, writing pads, and that is how I studied virtue in the beginning. And so I was able to feel what others felt. I was able to understand what I have created with others. So whatever came to me is a mirror of my own karmas, my own accounts. But one of the things that I found in relating and going back is my childhood days. We were brought up in a family that really stuck together as one. And one of the main reasons is that we had to eat dinner together at all times. There was one specific time when everyone had to be well clean and sit for dinner. Now, what goes on at the dinner table? Every single one will relate what they have done, how well they've done at school. Then we had to sit and hear mom complain to dad how this one behaved unruly, rude. And then we had to eat the food that was prepared by mother, whether we liked it or not, right? So those were the early days of being groomed into trying to communicate with an understanding that everyone should know each other better. And so all who had anger had to be very circumspect and very nice at the dinner table. All who did not want to hear the complaints of how bad he was or how bad she has done at school or how bad they have behaved or how rude they were, we had to accept it with a smile. And the decisions that were made at that dinner table, we either feel the wrath or the strength of authority. It might be, we used to call it in those days, we get lashes from our parents when we do a wrong thing. But we were able to understand that those things made us know each other better, understand each other better. And so it is just a matter of communication, that those were the aspects through which we went through to know each other better. Now, that's related to this time that we're meeting with God. We know and accept him as the Father. What he does, he speaks the truth. He tells us the truth. What truth? The truth about ourselves in relation with him. The truth about our births and our actions and the things that we have done in the past and our aspirations for where and what we will achieve. And so the process of rejuvenation or rejuvenating or reforming the soul begins. But it begins with truth. In the past, we always viewed truth as a hurtful thing to experience. But nobody can debate truth. No one can argue truth. Truth is truth. So we have to learn ways and means in accepting truth. We have to understand that this truth is not coming from mommy and daddy or uncle and auntie. It's coming from God directly. So what will we do? Would we feel like, I can't take it? Or we try to understand how to face it? One of the powers that I've learned through this knowledge of Raj Yoga is the power to face, the power to adjust. And these are the different aspects through the teachings of Raj Yoga that we learn. And the reason why we learn it or relearn it is because we have the capacity as souls to accept truth and to be divine as our eternal original qualities are, filled with virtues. And so what God does is bring us back to our original state, our original consciousness, our original being as perfection is the end it all. So don't ever believe that we cannot become perfect. With God, perfection is realized, but it takes some time. We have to use that time in building that state of consciousness in communicating with God. We have to be patient. We have to be peaceful. As we heard the commentary of the opening of this program, a meditation of what peace is, what silence is. Now, we can share, as we're here this evening, to share our experiences so that we can help each other to understand at a deeper level how we communicate with God. Now,
before you dive into the subject of communication with God, just a quick recap. So
yes.
if anybody has any thoughts to add on it. So when I asked you, like, how did you make time or manage time with all the things that you were already doing? And Raj Yoga was another add-on. It was very fascinating to hear that you needed less time to sleep because you were, well, because of your experience or your state of mind. I'm assuming that it was more calm, clear, so you were able to concentrate better, focus, because you said you were sitting on the desk and you would go for 2 days, day in and day
Yeah.
out, and with less amount of sleep, and you're getting more things done.
Mm.
Right? So I think it's a great incentive for people who find it difficult to find time. So you're actually gaining time because there's a less waste.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and I think many times we spend more time thinking what to do, what not to do than doing it.
That's right.
And also, somebody was saying about concentration. Like, sister, you imagine you put a cooker on the stove with rice, pressure cooker, and you turn it on. And as soon as you get a message on the WhatsApp notification you see, turn off the cooker.
Mhm.
And after you've seen the notification, go back, turn on the cooker.
Mhm.
On, off. Every time your attention goes to the notification, you're turning it off. It's like, will the rice cook faster or slower? So the point was because there is so much distraction. Every time my mind goes out, it takes more time to come back to get that heat up and so when there has been a study which is done, I think it was an experiment which was done by the IT wing of the Brahma Kumaris. It's called digital wellness. And they told a group where, we're giving you every week this task is given to you. And on one particular day, you have to turn off your phone. You're not picking up nothing else. You just focus and do. You're going to be given 2 hours to complete it. 2 hours. And majority finished in 45 minutes.
Mhm.
Well, the same report would have taken 4-5 days to be completed. And because they were able to focus. So one of the aspects of Raj Yoga is you were talking about power to face. I think the ability to power to pack up.
Mhm.
Like all the other windows which were open
Open,
in the
right,
computer,
right.
in the mind,
That makes sense. Yeah.
and you're packing up
Right,
and your focus, the power of concentration enhanced.
right.
And the second aspect that you touched on, or third or fourth, I don't know what aspect this is that you were talking about,
Yeah,
is truth.
truth.
You were talking about the bonding between the family as
Yes.
we sit and eat and eat. I totally relate to that, even as been a little different generation from you, but even me as growing up, we were like 3 generations, my grandfather, myself, my parents, we would all sit and have dinner. And as you said, whether you like it or not, you have to eat it. And many learnings came from that conversation. So food definitely played an important role. Did your food habit get modified, changed after you started to practice Raj Yoga?
Of course,
And
yes.
was there any
Yes.
effect
Yes.
with whatever modifications you did?
Yes, it did. Because during that time, going through that transition, of course, it was over 40 years ago. I had no television in my house. I had no cell phone, right? And today, those are the distractions that are among the number 1 to 5 in brackets. Now, everything was done with writing, mind, consciousness, and being fully aware of what we are doing. So we didn't have to rely on the gadgets that are today that many children cannot do without when they go to school. Take the cell phone away from them, they can't function. Is my phone there?
Oh, okay.
Don't worry. So as you said, sister, that transition brings about an inward or inner space transition. Now, when I say inner space, I mean going deep within the self and not even thinking about what goes on outside or nearer us. As I had mentioned, after a while, going into that little sanctuary that I call a meditation room at that time, sometimes you don't even know when a motor car pass or a motorcycle or a horn blow. It's just not there, because it's not that it isn't there, it is. But the transition is going into the inner being, going through a state or a process of rejuvenating. That is, not being pulled by the outside influences. And so I had the chance or the opportunity or the fortune, I would say, of going into a state of total silence and to practice not to be affected by any outside sounds, right?
The silence means just having thoughts or stillness, or there is thought.
Well, firstly, the change that takes place from the mind and intellect, that brings stability in the physical body. And that stability is because I started to follow what I read from the books, cook for myself, eat certain foods, not to eat the foods that I used to eat prior to coming into GAN. And so that change started to take place not only from the mind and the inner self, but it brought more stability. You know, sometimes you see one would sit down and then started to, fidget with whatever they may be feeling from the body. But that in itself, I was able to feel that that didn't disturb me, whatever it was that I could have expected or felt that the body's pulling me away from, just being focused. So I would like for anyone to share some experiences, because this is a program that really goes step by step. It's not a rushing sort of an event, because to change is not an overnight thing. It's a process through which our past actions pull us very strong or with a great strength. And then the newness of overcoming those actions, we have to play with that and to understand deeper. So change is a must when it comes to the self, because what we use is a physical body to understand what change means. Because as a soul, how could we experience or express change? We have to use the physical body and everything that surrounds action, reaction, or relationships with whatever or whoever that the body is connected with. That in itself operates now at a different frequency. The frequency that is higher than just physical expression. I don't see my brother as a man like me. I see as more one like I am, soul. One who, even if he makes me angry now, I wouldn't even react to that. I wouldn't even feel anger. I would just say to myself with deep understanding, Well, that's a reaction from the karmas that I had created. And so I understand deeper from the practice of going into silence, using the mind and intellect to communicate, rather than using mouth, shouting, or hands gesticulating, right? Just case of going into, well, as we had an understanding, as sister had just reminded me about, this thing that we call stillness. How do we accept what stillness is? What is stillness? Stillness is in relation to motion. Something that moves, when it is not moving, it's still. But here, what happens when we practice Raj Yoga? The mind and intellect is no longer becoming bombarded with various thoughts. It's now slowing up the pace of thoughts and coming into a more stable way of thinking. And so it affects the body. The body also becomes stabilized because it is no longer being bombarded by influences of the mind, going into a state of different thoughts. And so stability comes in the physical body automatically. And so we relate that stable position of the body as being still. And so when we are asked to be still, is that we have to control this body from being fidgety or too much unnecessary action, right? So stability begins from the metaphysical aspect, and stillness will come into the body automatically when the mind and intellect is stabilized. And what it means also is that we don't have to force the body to be still. It is an automatic sort of reaction because the mind and intellect is now focusing and slowing down these thoughts that we keep bombarding ourselves with. And so when these thoughts come down to focus, then we are able to connect with God. But we have to understand. We have to be patient. We have to see ourselves as children of God who have same qualities like Him. Because it is the Supreme Being who tells us we have the qualities like Him. But it's to understand how to use these qualities. First, stabilizing the self, because we get to know our true identity. That is, the mind and intellect slowing up on these thoughts, and automatically the physical body is controlled by the mind and intellect. Whatever we think, we make a decision on that thought. And when a decision is made, then we put body into action based on the decision we want to, or take part with, or act. Whether the action is just to smell, or to listen through the ears, or to move a hand, or to blink our eyes. It begins from a thought. We can all share whatever you would like to question or clarify, or just share your experiences. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
How long did it take for you to not being distracted from the outside? Let's say that you were bypassing It probably varies with the individual, like approximately how long, because if I try to do meditation, oh, thoughts just all the time, I run out of patience sometimes. So how long did it take for you, like, to meet that stage? I guess it's years, months.
Okay, it's a traffic control now. So we'll just take few seconds and again, in this moment,
Yes.
slow down,
Slow down.
breathe and be.
This is a real physical practice.
Let's take a moment. For the benefit of all, I'm not sure everybody heard the question.
Yes. Yeah.
So the question is, the sister is asking that how long did it take for him to have a non-wavering or a stable mind? Because when she tries to meditate, the thoughts go on over. So how long did it take?
Firstly, it depends on my daily practice. What things I do, what things I'm involved with, what or whom I'm connecting with. How do I smooth that? How do I bring it into a smooth state? Right? Because definitely it's going to take a longer time to bring yourself into a stable state. If I say, well, look, I have to look after my children first. I have to cook meals. I have to prepare this. I have to get things in order before I do this. So I put priority on things that are physical that could wait a while, right? Because you still have to do it. But then again, I must have the mind set. And so if we look at a time factor in knowing how and when we could make that communication or connection with those things in the mind at the back of our head, I don't know, it's going to take a very long time. But we have to understand, as I would say, I put it this way, to be simple. Who is teaching you? Is God the supreme? Who am I taking instructions? Is God the supreme? Would I say, well, okay, I have things to do, he gotta wait? You understand? The longer I do that, or the more I do that, is the longer I would take to come. I definitely have to make time under whatever circumstances, or what will happen eventually. A too late signboard will hang up. And then I will say to myself, if I had known, I should have done it like that. So whatever you have to do it now. So when it comes to knowing or understanding why, how I must meditate, I have to start the practice of that now. It got to be practiced. It's a
Along with
practical.
practice, what he also shared was to importance on what content am I involved in, right? Throughout the day.
Right.
What I'm doing, where I'm involved in, all those things affect. Right? So what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, what I'm listening, what I'm eating, who I'm interacting with, everything, it's a good handshake. Your meditation will have an influence of all this, on all this, and all of this has an influence when you sit for meditation. So, and definitely make time in between and be. So then when you come from this space, then you have an influence. Because just listening to Brother Terry, or since when he's sharing, I'm identifying
Mhm.
at least 4 or 5 connections. Yoga is nothing but connection. The first you said was the connection with yourself, whether it's the identity or whether you're feeling, you
Yeah.
start to feel
Feel.
that peace, the calmness or stillness. The second is the connection with this body.
Yes.
He was talking about the stillness. I'm not fidgeting anymore. My body is still. I'm in control. My sense organs are in control. The third effect or the connection he spoke about was my connection with everyone, whether it is things, whether it is people, they started to see change in them. And you have an impact. There's a connection that happened. Fourthly, connection with the source, with the
Yeah.
supreme, with the divine, where you're getting that power from.
Right.
Well, fifth, I would say, you're adding it to the environment. So the elements are also
Right.
getting it. You're having a connection with, like you
Of
can
course.
either pollute the environment with negative
Or
thinking, waste
enhance it.
thinking, or with this positive and elevated thinking. You have any other questions, Manu?
Now, what I can help with that aspect, if there's another question.
Question.
Any question?
My thoughts, I've been coming here since 1992.
Oh, that's very nice.
It helped a lot.
Yes.
For my first visit,
Yes.
I was able to detach.
Okay.
Detachment here and here with you, it's a great power.
Yes.
You mind if I turn the camera?
Yes.
Is it okay? Okay, all right, okay.
And detachment, once you're able to detach from that material world here, it is full of confusion. You empower yourself. You can control it. And the minute you get too engrossed in the material world, you find you get upset, you get angry, you can't control, everything seems chaotic. And the moment you remember, I can detach, I need to detach. You know yourself, you know when it's needed. I had an experience where
I'll just bring the laptop close. It's
Yeah,
okay, I won't show
yeah.
the camera, but they can hear you better, okay?
Yes.
um, I had an experience about 3 years after I started to come. On specific occasions here, meditation and different kind of knowledgeable things. And one time I had to go testify in a court case in the high court. I was in this witness box. And then suddenly the judge is there and the 2 lawyers started to argue based on an explanation I gave. And they were arguing and suddenly I drifted. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. Physically, I was there. And all I could have seen is that this was a stage play. I saw it, I felt it was a stage play. And me, I'm away from it. And I'm seeing the stage play. Then the judge called out to me and said, twice he called my name, said, "Are you with us?" And I returned. Then I realized I was in power over myself. Because I didn't work on detaching. I automatically
Naturally.
detached. I automatically was detached and I saw everything like a stage play and I thought, this is so stupid. I'd never forget that day. Yes, so I still have this, I haven't been coming only when there's event and I'm notified. I was just notified after 6. So I was right in the vicinity, so I thought, let me come.
Welcome.
Yes. And
What's your name?
My name is Sherry. Hi.
Sherry.
Yes. And I tell people how important yoga is. You don't have to be a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddha.
Buddhist.
Yes, you don't need that. It's all within the universe. And if people were to understand that, I'm still surprised that very few people come here.
You come now, so now you'll bring more people. Now you'll go
Yes,
share your
in a short
experience.
space of time, when I had
See,
a
that's awesome.
notification,
Good.
I spoke with 3 persons from a family. I said, you know what, I'm going on there, you all should pass by. But it was late notice.
That is Seva, very good, very good.
Yes, but it had done, my first day when I came, a friend brought me. And I was working for this big international company. And the behavior of some employees was very unappealing. And the next day, I was able to go there and work so happily and ignoring them completely.
I didn't bother you.
I didn't care. I
You're minding
felt,
your own business.
yes, I felt, oh, I don't belong to that kind of thing. I'm a higher power. That's how I felt about myself.
Excellent. I was just going to make an announcement, but I think you're setting the context for it.
Yes.
But before I make that, Brother Stanley, would you like to share anything?
No, detached observer.
Huh?
I'm a detached observer.
He's a detached observer. Okay, good. That's, anybody on Zoom would like to ask? Or if not, any final thoughts? Then we can do meditation. It's about
Yes.
evening with the yogi, so we meditate. Any final
Well,
thoughts?
certainly, final thoughts would be like this. If within our home, we can prepare a nice, calm environment or some space so that we can get more opportunity to observe inner space, right? It will help in accelerating the method that we will use in communicating with God. So just like how I had to clear up a junk room, the mind and intellect was clear in the same time I was clearing the junk room. So just imagine, if a room could hold so much junk, you could imagine what is in the mind and intellect. So we have 2 things to do. Clear the space outwardly and inwardly. It has to do with the soul and its qualities, its intricate faculties, and it has to do with the physical also. And what is concerning the physical is what we can see with the eyes that surround this physical. So if I want to remain dirty and full of junk, it will take a long time to get myself in readiness and in preparing myself to communicate. If I can clean it up quick, pack it, put it in its right perspective, then you will find automatically communication will automatically take place at a fast pace. I hope we'll be able to keep trend of that speed that we will be taking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
How would you juggle, like, let's say you're working, so what do you advise, like, to someone like to start meditate, to start that process? It's like take 5 minutes per day, 10 minutes per day, what?
All right, firstly, let me ask one question based on that. How many hours do you sleep?
I sleep not good, 6 hours.
6 hours.
Yeah.
Could you take 15 minutes out of the 6 hours and sleep 5 and 3/4 hour? That 15 minutes will be very important. Now, many of us think that sleep is a must, but sleep is if you may, because many people don't have a real thing, but they got to take medication to sleep. So for them, sleep is not a must, right? So for us now, we are having a medication called meditation, right? And all we have to do is, it wouldn't take anything out of us. So take 15 minutes out of 6 hours. Sleep 5 and 3/4. And eventually you will feel that energy enhancing. It's becoming like uplifting. You feel tireless, right? And over a period of time, you'll find yourself, while working, you're meditating or communicating, while even cooking, while even sleeping, you'll be able to find yourself in another metaphysical plane. And that is because the soul is now embodying the process of knowing what thoughts is important to me and knowing what thoughts I can discard. That is where the labor is. That is where we feel that we slept 10 hours and I wake up more tired. It's the bombarding of thoughts that create that dispel that energy. So we are able to slow our thoughts down, have more energy, have less sleep, and that time is occupied with connecting. And it happens automatically. Once you persevere, it's going to,
Madhavan will make time for course. Yes.
time will always be there.
You'll have more time.